believe it or not, all of this white is going to eventually be the lower cabinets for a kitchen. Stay tuned and see how fun and easy this is to do. Alright, we're starting by looking at the corner room box that we made a while back. If you've probably seen, if you follow my channel, you've seen this tutorial series where we actually made the whole room box. When I made the room box, I think I explained I was making it so that I could use it as the backdrop to take photos of various projects I make on the channel. And so one week I may need this to be a bedroom, and the next week I may need it to be a living room. And some weeks I need it to be a kitchen, because if you look through my tutorials I've done, a lot of them are food. So we are working, that's what we're working towards. That's why we made a refrigerator. That's why we made our microwave. And this week we are going to start the kitchen cabinet set. And when I make the kitchen cabinets for this, I'm actually going to be putting them onto a fake wall unit that can slide in and out of here. Now, if you're putting your kitchen cabinets into your dollhouse, you won't necessarily need to do that. You'll probably be able to just glue them to your dollhouse walls. But because this situation is a little different, I can't do that here. But there are some of you that might want to have something that's portable that they can pull out and put in. Maybe you have a dollhouse that you just don't want to glue stuff to the walls. Maybe it's a valuable one, or maybe you want to be able to change it up on a regular basis. This will allow you to do that. One downside is we're going to lose a 1/4 inch on each of those two walls. It's going to move the wall forward, but that's okay. So what are we going to do? Well, the first step is you need to go in and measure your room. And I already did that. I know that I've got 10 inches across, 10 inches deep, and I'm 9.5 inches tall. Then you need to sit down and think about what style of kitchen you're going to put in your room. Is your dollhouse going to have a galley style kitchen where you've got cabinets on the two sides? Are you going to have a single line of kitchen cabinets? Are you going to have a U-shaped kitchen? This one, I'm just going to make an L shape. It's going to have cabinets on this wall, on both walls. There's going to be a sink in the corner. And there's also going to be a stove over here. It's going to be a little tight, but it'll be fine. And then I'm going to try and do an island that I can stick out here in the corner for other photos. By having it slide in and out, it makes it a lot easier. So the next thing you need to do then is lay out your kitchen cabinets. And I will try to put a picture of what I came up with. So I've drawn out what I want to do, and this is a scale drawing. I did it on graph paper. The graph paper has 1/4 inch squares, and in my drawing each 1/4 inch square equals a 1/2 inch. And I will probably adjust things as I go, but I know basically what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a narrow, tall cabinet here. I'm going to have a cabinet, a small counter. I'm going to have a sink. I'm going to have a small counter. I'm going to have a stove, and then a really narrow cabinet. And then the top cabinets will go in also. We're also going to create a tile backsplash. And this is another project that's going to take a couple of weeks because there's a lot to do. We're basically going to make kitchen cabinets, and that takes a while. So I'm going to move to the craft table, and I'm going to start cutting out my walls. Alright, I'm going to apologize in advance in case I knock the camera with something, because this is really difficult to get this sheet of foam core underneath the camera. So I've straightened this edge relative to the side fairly well. It may not be perfect, but it's fine. And I want my walls, my fake walls, to be 8 inches tall. They're not going to go all the way to the ceiling in my room. So I'm cutting all the way across. This is an Omnigrid ruler, and it's made to use with a rotary cutter with fabric. So it's nice and thick, and it'll stand up to cutting against. I don't use it very often on video because it's hard to see through it on the camera, but it's a really thick, sturdy piece to work with. and I almost always use it when I'm working on big pieces. Now, the first one needs to be 10 inches wide. If this isn't perfectly straight, that's okay, because our counters are going to go over it. I'm going to go a little bit over, and then I'm going to cut it back on that side. Alright, let's turn it around and get that edge square. And this is our back wall. And off camera I will probably do a little more fiddling to make sure this is perfectly right, but on camera it's really difficult because I can't have my head where I actually need it. Now the second wall is going to be 9 3/4, and that is just barely wide enough. There. Now when this sits in front of this, it will give me a square room. So I'm going to go turn the camera off. I'm going to get these cut so they're completely straight. I'm going to move the camera out of the way so I don't take a chance on knocking it on the floor, and get these trimmed up, and then I'll be back. Alright, so I have these now cut and straight, and that's my bigger piece. So what I need to do is run a bead of glue along the cut edge of the piece that's just a little bit shorter. It's a 1/4 inch shorter, so that it will make a square room. Now we're going to put these together, lining up just like we've done on many other projects, lining up this edge to the cut end of the cut edge, and then, and this is going to be really wobbly until you get your pins in, and that will help a lot with getting this stabilizing. And then once the glue dries and we start building against the structure, it will get actually fairly strong. It's still obviously not as strong as a wooden structure, but it's pretty strong considering what it is. Alright, then what I like to do, oops, it needs to go in there, take the flat edge of anything. I usually use the side of my craft knife. Let's do that. And now this glue needs to dry so that it will make as good a bond as we can have, and then we'll come back and we'll move on to the next step. Alright, so off camera I cut a strip of foam core that is the width of my piece of foam core by 3 1/4 inches tall. So that is going to be the back of our cabinets, and what we need to do is put it in, and we're going to glue it right to our board. This will allow us to have something for our countertop to adhere to. So I've marked off where I want everything to end, and I need a 6 1/2 inch piece for the back wall. Whoops, I've got too many things over there. So let me get a 6 1/2 inch piece cut off of here. And this is what it is for mine. If you're, you'll have to watch what I do, and then I'll give the measurements here and also on the blog post, but then you're going to have to adapt it to what your individual kitchen needs. Since every dollhouse room is different, whoops, sorry, didn't mean to bump you. So this can go here, and I am going to glue this down with just tacky glue. And I moved my tacky glue to the squeeze bottle because I had lost the lid, and it was starting to get way too thick. I need to put the lid back on, and I had to thin it with some water to get it out of the original bottle. But I had lost my lid, and it wasn't coming out anymore because it was getting way too thick. So hopefully I didn't thin it too much. So I'm going to spread this out. Once it sits in there, it will get back to normal, but I needed to use it. Alright, so line up on the bottom. And I'm going to find some, first I'm going to put the lid on my glue so I don't ruin it. I'm going to find some heavy things to set on this, and I'm going to let this glue dry, but I want to weight it down so it doesn't warp at all. And I'll be back when this is dry. Alright, we're a couple of hours later. I just took my weight off of this and it's ready to go. So let's go ahead and cut this one. I actually have two pieces for this side. There's going to be something on my finger. It's going to be a really narrow cabinet here, and then a cabinet that runs here. Can you guys see that? So I need to measure this. And for this I need 5.5 inches, and then I'm going to, I'll get the 5.5 first. Cut off 5.5 inches. The same piece of stuff. There is glue all over my table today. And this piece is never actually going to show when this is done. This piece is going to just be the backing of our cabinets, so we have some place to set our countertop. Now the last piece is 3/4 of an inch wide. Now I don't know if I've mentioned or not, these are not going to be working cabinetry. These are going to be fake cabinets, because moving it in and out, I don't think real ones would work. I will try to remember to put a link to the set, the kit set, if I can find it online, that I used in my Harrison. I do have a kitchen with working cabinets in it, but I wouldn't try to build working cabinets without doing them from a kit. So this is going to go here, and this is going to go here, and this will leave a spot for our stove when we get it made. Yep, that's coming. Little sneak peek there. So I'm just going to glue these two pieces down. I'm going to put a weight over it, and I'm going to let this sit overnight. And when this is dry in the morning, I'll come back and we'll start building out the cabinets. Alright, so this has been weighted down all night, and it's nice and sturdy. So now we're going to make the base, that part that your cabinets sit on in your kitchen. That my dad always called it the kick plate. I think it's the area that's kind of inset under the cabinet. And by the way, I'm going to make a mock-up of what you would do if you were not gluing this to your walls. So this cabinet is just going to be a small cabinet like would go in a kitchen, and it's going to be assembled the way you would if you were just making this to glue into your dollhouse when you got done. Now we're going to put the base. The base is only 1.5 inches thick, and since both of these boards, this board sits on top of this one, and so does this. So on this side, I'm going to do this one first. See? So I need to measure, and for this I can use my smaller ruler, and this is 5.5 inches. So I'm going to go 5.5 inches. Now I'm going to attempt to keep this straight, because it gets harder and harder as the pieces actually get smaller. It gets harder and harder to keep this level. And that one I know is 3/4 of an inch, and I just knocked a piece of foam core down on the floor on top of the kitten. Oh well, it's okay. Foam core's light. And he just stole it. Alright, so we'll get these two in first. And these are going to be kind of weird because they're going to stand out like this. So, get my glue opened. I'm going to run glue on the end. Yeah, I got a little too much water in my tacky glue when I rehydrated it. In the back. This will all become quite stable once it gets all glued together. At this point, it's really fragile. Pushed in a minute. The pins will help, though. glue all over my fingers. And my cabinets are going to sit on top of that. This one, I'm not sure how stable I can make it because it's really skinny. So we're going to put this one in. I need to line it up. Hopefully I'm under camera somewhat. Hopefully I was under camera for that part. I'll have the next part under camera. My fingers, I need my wet wipe out. Now, let's measure this area. So from here to the end, I am going to need the right end of the ruler. I need 4 7/8 of an inch there. And this one also, you need to then glue in like this. I put that in right there. It's starting to look like kitchen. We're starting to see the footprint of our kitchen cabinets. Now that one I cannot pin. So I'll show you how we're going to reinforce that in just a moment. After I pin this and get the base onto that. Now make sure that your edges are lined up. Ow. And try not to poke yourself with the pin. Alright, now we need to reinforce this area right here. And to do that, well, first I'm going to cut the piece off I need for this. Let's see. We need this. This is our mock-up cabinet for those of you that are making your cabinets to glue into your dollhouse later. 2.5. Because I realized in the middle of the night I hadn't really explained to you how you go about doing that. And I did label top so I'd remember what I was doing later. Come on, pins, cooperate. Pull it out of camera range long enough to get the pin started. Make sure that all of your edges, your bottom and your sides, match at this point. Because this is what we're building our cabinet onto. So we need to make sure that that is nice and square. Now we take a scrap. Because the inside, since our cabinets are not working cabinets, nobody will ever see the inside. I'm going to put glue on the back. Yeah, that's under camera. Good, I'm under camera for once. Lid on my glue. Now it won't sit there. It's going to just sit like that. But that will help to hold this together. So I'm going to let this glue dry, and when this is dry, I'll come back and we'll start putting the sides and fronts on our kitchen cabinets. Alright, so this glue is dry enough now that we can go ahead and build the sides to our cabinets. They're going to go just like this. And if we have anything we need to cut off, we can cut it off when we're done. So, I know that I need, for my first one, I need a piece 1.5. I'm going to need pieces 1.5 inches wide by 3 inches tall. So I'm going to cut that. Sorry, I'm kind of out of it. I've been doing other things. I have to get back in the mode here. So I'm going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 altogether. Oopsie. So I'm going to turn the camera off and get these cut so I can move my camera and cut it the right direction. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and do our cabinets. We can put these sides on. So this is going to sit right like this. Then the front of our cabinets are going to sit just 3 inches high also. You'll see it. It might not make sense yet, but it will as I get it put together. And I'll try and have some photos. I should have taken some photos earlier. I'll take... I get my glue shaken up a bit. And so we are going to be gluing, and wherever possible we are going to pin. Now, this is how you would do your cabinets if you're doing cabinets to glue into a dollhouse, not attaching them to the wall to begin with. And if you wanted to make working cabinets, like I said earlier, I will have a link to the kit I used in the Harrison if I can find a link to it. The problem with doing those is you need to use actual wood and much thinner wood. And maybe we'll do a, we might do that on the channel one of these days, but not right now. That's a possibility for a future series. Or if the Patreon thing goes well, maybe do one of those kits like I used in my Harrison. I like those a lot. Alright. And this is going in here. Now the thing to remember about cabinetry is they're really just boxes. They're a series of boxes. So that's all we have to make is boxes. Now, obviously this is going to be a multi-week project again because I don't want to be here, I don't want to, make you sit through hours of video, but I still want to be able to explain everything in a way that everyone can accomplish what I have. That's one of the things I try to be very conscious of, is making sure I'm providing you with all the instructions you may possibly need. So there is our mock-up of a single cabinet. Now, let's move this cabinet in. Excuse me. So we're going to put one here at this beginning end. Now you might have noticed if you, I think I showed the drawing, my original drawing, I had planned to have a cabinet next to my refrigerator, but when I got everything out, in my drawing it looked good. When I actually started cutting my pieces for the actual piece, it was obvious that I just don't have the room that I would like to have for that, so I'm just not going to have a cabinet at the end. The refrigerator will sit right at the end of the room, and that's okay. So we need to pin this. And if things are not completely even, we can straighten that up later when we get everything done. Now, because we can see through the foam core just a little bit, I can actually see the shadow of where my wall ends. Yes, I did hit it. So if you have a light, I have a light over here. So I can see, because of that, I can see a shadow of where this wall ends. So that's helping me a lot in getting these in. So let's go ahead and flip this around. Easier to put the glue on when it's like this. And I see I've got a few places I'm definitely going to be trimming when I get everything done. This sticks out a little bit past this, and that's okay. And I can do either of two things. I could just bring this all the way to the end, and which I think is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and give myself just a little more space. Since I don't have the stove made yet, I can make it to fit. Now I'm going to push those pins in. And I'm going to, again, put this in a position where I can see the shadow of the wall and put my pins in. Now this will need to be trimmed back when I get to it, because this and this will need to be straight, but that I'll show you how to trim that later. So let's go ahead and get this one done. This one is going to become a pretty much almost a solid cabinet. I'm just going to put glue on the whole thing. But I just love those little cabinets at the side of the stove. I think they look really cool. There it is. I knew my pins were here somewhere. And my glue is still actually curing that I put these bottom pieces on. So, and I did that on purpose so that put these in before that was completely cured, because it allows me then to make adjustments if I need to. Like this was not curing completely flat, and now it will, because I have a 90-degree corner on my pieces I'm adding. Whoops, I've got 2 pins there. I don't need 2. Now, again, wet wipe. My fingers are so full of glue, I cannot get a hold of my pins. This one, maybe I'll put it where you can see. I'm just going in on the end of the wall. Obviously, I know that that lines up with the end, so I can find that one. This one, again, I am looking for the shadow that is being cast from my lighting. And you might have to put yours near a window or turn on a light or something over here so that you'll be able to see the shadow through, so you can pin these. Because they really should be pinned. Whoops, that slipped out of position. There. Alright, now this glue does need to get all the way dry before we go on, because our next step will be to do any trimming we need to do, and then we can put on the fronts of the cabinets. Alright, so my glue is dry on my end pieces. I added a couple of spacers. I cut the same sizes as these, because I decided that I needed something for my cabinet front, which is our next piece to put on, to lean against. I didn't want it to go crooked at that end. So, I know that I need a piece. I'm going to go from this corner back almost to this wall, which will be about 6 1/4 inches. So I've got another strip of foam core that's 3 inches, And this is from the very beginning of the piece of foam core, so it's got a bad corner on it, but that's okay because it's going to be hidden back inside of our cabinetry. So that's fine. There. Get that cut off. And now we're going to line this up with this end and with the tops of our cabinets, and it should sit right above this strip of foam core that we put on the bottom. So our only contact points that we'll be gluing against will be here and here. So I need my glue. Once we get the countertop on, we'll have more to glue to. Make sure that the bad corner goes inside. Line it up with the, so it sits right above the base there. And I'm going to leave this laying on its back. Now I might as well cut this one also at the same time. And this one will be a little easier to see what I'm doing. So we need a piece 2.5 inches. I am really running into issues here with too much stuff in my way. I have way too many projects going right now. And it's making for a very crowded workroom. Alright. Now in this one I think you're able to see a little bit better what I'm doing. So these upright pieces, the ends of our cabinetry, and in my big one, the brace pieces I put in. We could put glue on the faces of those. We line this up so it's lined up at the edges and at the top. So it's lined up here and it's lined up at the sides. And we don't really want to pin this because that could show through our covering that we put over the outside. So this glue needs to sit. When this has dried enough that everything's pretty stable, I'll come back and we'll add the fronts to the other run of cabinets. Alright, so the glue is now set up enough that we can turn it and put these pieces in. So I cut my pieces to fit. And then another piece for this one. And this is probably as far as we're going to get today, but you're going to have an important job between now and next week, and that is you need to think about how you want your kitchen set up. Where do you want doors and where do you want drawers? So I'm going to have to sketch that out for mine, because next week we are going to put our fake doors and drawer fronts on, as well as the finish on our cabinets. So you have lots of choices there. You can have painted cabinets, you could have a fake wood. It's up to you on what goes with your dollhouse. So those set up so they're nice and straight. Try to wipe off any excess glue. I had glue running down there. And make sure that's all lined up. When I make sure it's lined up, I'm actually going to set a couple of bottles on it so that it will help weight it down. And same with this one. So I'm going to let the glue dry, and then I'll come back and we'll take a really good look at what we've done this week, and then we'll talk about what we need to be thinking about between this week and next week. Alright, so my glue is dried for probably almost 24 hours at this point, so we've got a nice sturdy cabinet base glued onto our fake walls. I think this is going to work really well. This is where we're going to leave it today because I don't want to get started on trying to cover these and get doors and drawers set up and stuff until next week. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Oh, and we'll take a look at our little individual cabinet. I got to thinking overnight, I think this is going to become a bathroom cabinet. It'll be perfect size for a little bathroom cabinet. And they're made the same way as a kitchen cabinet, but you can see a little closer hopefully, and I'll have photos on the blog post of like what the different areas look like. But I hope you found this useful. I hope that you're crafting along with me. You can join me next week when we put the exterior finish on our lower cabinets and our door and drawer fronts. We'll hopefully get the tile backsplash done, and I don't know if we'll get the countertop done or not. We'll see. I'm not sure how much we're going to get done next week. Depends on how long it takes to get the other stuff done. So, in the meantime, check the blog post. If you want to help me improve this channel and bring you even more and better videos, be sure and check out my Patreon page. If you haven't found the Facebook page, be sure and check there. I'm easy to get a hold of on that spot, and I will talk to you later. Bye.